Happy May 12th to all of you, 11:08 in the morning. Mike Giardi, Will Parkinson here alongside, as always, for the All 32 pod, which is a part of and a proud member of the CLNS Media Network. Will, I hope you had a good weekend. I did a lot of work, painting, doing all this yard stuff. Meanwhile, you're out there playing golf with NFL players. I mean, it's clear that you and I are operating in different circles here.
Yeah, no, just your regular F-list celebrity. It was we got some nice weather this weekend, which is obviously nice. Rookie mini camp, always exciting. I know the Patriots had to be inside, the Jets were inside one of the days, and then outside. We had number drama with Jets rookies. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, we figured today for this episode that we generally focus on all 32, as the title suggests, but generally with a bent of Jets and Patriots. But I wanted to make this one strictly Pats and Jets specific because in talking to people and reading what I did about the Jets over this rookie mini camp, and certainly what's gone on over the last couple months, and then of course being around the Patriots, experiencing rookie mini camp on Friday, the first time that we've been allowed in rookie mini camp since a guy by the name of Tyrone McKenzie, a linebacker, tore his ACL. 2013 maybe. And after that, Belichick was like, no, you guys aren't getting in here anymore. But we were in there for Mike Vrabel and rookie minicamp on Friday indoors. And just, I got the sense, and I've been getting the sense for a while now, Will, that both these teams are on a similar path. And it starts with the alignment of the front office of the coaching staff, but in particular the coaching staff, and even more super specific, the head coaches. Mike Vrabel, who's doing this for a second time, this will be his 7th year as a head coach, versus Aaron Glenn getting his first crack. But it's pretty clear to me that both these guys have a real idea of what they want to do, Will, and that will shape these organizations going forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the Jets really didn't practice in rookie minicamp under Robert Saleh. It was, I'll keep it. They didn't practice. It was like a glorified dog and pony show. They practiced. Again, they're not. It's not a training camp practice. They're not. Running these guys on the ground. But like, there was at least some form of competition, some form of seeing what these guys are, and it's not just for the rookies that are, the drafted guys, the Will Campbells, the Armand Members of the world, like. A lot of these guys have tryouts. A lot of these guys are going to see, hey, are we going to get, are we going to find 2 or 3 street guys we want to bring to minicamp? Maybe this depth offensive lineman or this receiver that, hey, we saw Jalen Smith, work out for the Raiders. Like, not to maybe that extent, but a lot of teams, this is a good way to just see who maybe those roster spots 87 through 90 that end up, wow, this guy had a really great summer and he makes the practice squad. Like, those are important too. So to see both organizations take it seriously, again, I'm not going to sit there and be like, wow, you're not getting a trophy for it, but it just sends a message that both organizations, I think, especially the last 12 months specifically, have been kind of not run by anybody. Like, in a lot of ways, it's just been kind of, Joe Caparosa, who I work with, and the Jet stuff called the Jets a shell company last year. And I felt like to some extent the Patriots were too. Yeah. Like you don't know really who's running the show, who's not, who's in what position, what's going on, like who has influence, who doesn't, who's actually drafting players. Like there's a lot of questions and concerns, I think, around both organizations, which is why in similar ways, they both hired, former franchise, legends, I think is a proper way, if you want to phrase it that way. And they're running the show. And it's pretty clear that Aaron Glenn and Mike Vrabel are the face, the ultimate decision maker. Everything runs through them. There is no like, hey, this guy, this looming guy. No, it's Aaron Glenn's show. It's Mike Vrabel's show. And I think while it may be just 2 or 3 days, to me, it was a first signal of like them playing some form of football and, those guys being very much in charge.
I've always been a big believer that this time of year can help shape who you want to be as a football team, and sort of you're building on the foundation, right? This is, again, as you mentioned, it's not like intense football. They're not in full pads, and there's contact, but there's not full contact. And it's as the CBA has dictated, there are certain levels to training as they go along, and this is just part of that. But I do believe in years past, especially last year, you could almost find that the foundation was already crumbling. And last year, Gerard Mayo insisted to us over and over again, I want to let my coaches coach. And I always took that as a shot at Belichick because Belichick was always very hands-on and sometimes just overriding, which, by the way, the head coach should be. The buck stops with him. But Mayo's approach was, no, these guys are hired to do the job. They're going to do the job. Well, he didn't know how to do his job. And in some cases, some of the coaches he hired didn't know how to do their jobs. And they're looking for direction from the guy that's supposed to give it, the head coach. And because he's only been coaching for 5 years and never in a position of power, he didn't know what to tell them. He didn't know how to direct them. He didn't know what he wanted. And I remember, as in fact, I was writing it for Boston Sports Journal for tomorrow, but I went back and looked at the day after or 2 days after Mayo was fired, and I had sourced a couple of players saying, like, we had no direction. We had no idea what we were doing. The plan changed way too often. You think you're doing it one way, and then the next day we're doing it completely different. And I can tell you from watching Mike Vrabel and his coaching staff on Friday in the Wynn Fieldhouse at Foxboro, which is the biggest dump of a field house ever. But as they're doing their work, there is no question about what they're trying to do, how they're trying to do it. There is intentionality to everything. There are no wasted moments. And the head coach, Will, is front and center. He is talking to the tight end about a seam route that he ran, and he runs down to him and he's telling CJ Dupree, I want you to do this, not this. If you feel him here, like, he's very involved, right? And then it's John Giles, a second-year player, was on the practice squad last year, makes a nice catch after a route adjustment. He comes over and he's giving him low fives. He's putting on the full body bag suit, to get involved in contact. And it's like, this guy is everywhere. He is directing everything. He is overseeing all of it. And there is no question now that, he's not head coach. Josh McDaniels is not head coach of the offense. He's running the offense. Mike's the damn head coach. Last year, Alex Van Pelt, offensive coordinator, head coach offense, as Gerard Mayo said. That's not how this works now. Everything runs through Mike Vrabel, and you can see it, you can feel it, and it gives a whole different kind of energy that was certainly lacking last year when I think those guys early on, whether it be in OTAs or in training camp, realized, our head coach is in over his head. There's no worries about that. This head coach knows what he wants. He knows how he wants to get it, and they have already started that process.
Yeah, I don't know. Look, we'll see what camp looks like for both teams. And there's always a lot of talk. Ooh, they're going to get pushed. They're going to push these guys. We'll see, right? And I'm not going to say we know what's going to happen until we see it.
Yep.
Last year, I remember the Jets, they were in full pads a lot. They wanted to prevent injuries, but they weren't really doing anything. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, while they were in full pads, they weren't like these insanely intense practices. They weren't lengthy practices. There was no there was intensity, obviously, right? It's training camp. It is what it is. But and they hit some, Mike. So they avoided a lot of injury early in the summer outside of Michael Carter and one or two other guys. Like, no one really got hurt during camp for the Jets. But then everyone got hurt during the season because the practices weren't actually game speed. They weren't in really hyper intense practices. I think both times, 2 or the 3 times they had joint practices, one of the days got canceled, if not both. There was just a lot that happened last year that was a bit odd. There wasn't a ton of direction. And then again, during practice, it was kind of like, I don't want to I'm not trying to be a dick here, but it felt like a middling college program practice where it's like, we're in full pads. Like, this is we're that program. And it's like, dude, that's cool. But what are you doing with the full padded practices? Are you doing it to punish guys? Are you doing it to make a show? Or are you doing it to be better? And, there were some comments. I think Chuck Clark said it last year at the end of the year, dude, after we'd lose a game in the Ravens, people were fighting each other on Wednesday practice because they were so pissed off about losing. That maybe wasn't necessarily the culture that was created. And again, we don't have to rehash the past, but I'm sure from a New England perspective too, it's there's a difference in just saying I'm going to be intense and then what actually an intense practice looks like. It's about the mental reps. Are you mentally challenging these players week in, week out, day in, day out during practice to become better players? Is it from a physical perspective? Is it technique work and doing these different things that are really going to make a difference on Sunday? Or is it just we're just going to go 11 on 11 because it's it looks good for the media? No offense. You don't have to make me and Mike's job easier or anybody else's job. You should be worrying about on Sunday, we line up at 1:02 p.m. in Foxboro, and like we're ready to play football for 60 minutes and kick your ass. Not, hey, we looked really fun. We talked about how great our week of practice was and all these different things, and you get blown off the football starting the game. Those are just the things that I think, again, this is just a rookie minicamp.
Mm-hmm.
But these guys being in charge, having played through really intense eras in the 90s and the early 2000s and all that stuff, and then Mike having coached, Aaron Glenn having now coached multiple spots with very demanding – they both come from a lineage of like the very demanding coaches. I expect practices during the season and very much during training camp to be a much, much different level. I expect like higher levels of fighting, but also not because these guys are bad teammates or these different things – because they care more, because they're getting pushed and they're frustrated. Hey, I got to make a play. This guy's kicking my ass 4 reps in a row. Like I'm getting frustrated, not the, or the I'm tired. Like it's just, Mike, there's such a difference. And you played football. You played football in high school and in college. You've covered the league for a long time. You can see right away. First practice at training camp, right away whether the team's going to be good. I'm telling you, it's just you see it right away and you go yes or no. And I think both teams will be prepared on Sundays.
I'm glad you brought up, there's a couple things I wanted to touch on there that you brought up. And one was the past. And we don't want to keep rehashing the past, but it's going to come up a lot during the course of the season. It's going to come up a lot as we measure, as the team goes through various checkpoints. And that's one of the things to me, like as I was writing this piece for Boston Sports Journal, it's like, I'm not trying to beat up on Gerard Mayo. We said what we had to say about it. I've told you my feelings about it from the start. He was in over his head, all these different things. But to go from that and this sort of aimless approach, as I keep using the word meandering, this meandering approach, like this is completely different. There is a direction, there is a plan, and it shouldn't be that hard, but it was that hard for that group last year, for that head coach last year. And you had the general manager having to take away from some of his duties in that regard to help the head coach navigate his plan. It's like, that's just not how it works. It was so flawed from the start. And now you see that, oh, these guys are pros. They know how to do this. They know what they want. They know how to get it from the players. And if they don't get it from the players, then that player's not going to be here. And it's what you were saying about some of these young guys. Like, hey, maybe you're only 87, 88, 89, and 90 on the roster, but you showed us something. You retained the information. You took it out on the field. You delivered on the field. We don't have any preconceived notions of that. We don't care how you got here. You're here now. And if you show me that you deserve to be here going forward, you're going to be here. And Vrabel has said that. I think Aaron Glenn has talked about that as well. Like that stuff doesn't matter. So I'm going to fight the urge to constantly compare. But when you see it and it's like a 180 from what it was last year, it's hard not to go, remember last year when we were looking at this and it didn't make any sense? And now, oh, it makes sense. They know what they're doing. And that's just, it automatically puts you in a different place and raises your floor up considerably from where it was. One thing I did want to mention from Patriots rookie minicamp is the absence of defensive coordinator Terrell Williams. And come to find out, Terrell hasn't been with the team since, as he called it, spring break. So we're going back a ways here. Had a health scare back at home in Detroit, where, of course, he was this past season as the run game coordinator and defensive line coach for the Patriots. We got to talk to him via Zoom, which was nice, kind of be able to put a face to it, see how he's doing. He had energy. He said he's doing what the doctors tell him to do. They wanted him to stay in Detroit for now. He is, quote unquote, rehabbing. He made a strong plea to everyone to take care of their bodies. He said, I got loose. He's a big man, played nose guard at East Carolina. Again, I'm not going to speculate on what it was, but he made a strong plea for people to make sure they're getting proper rest, managing their stress levels, eating right. And the feeling is that Terrell will be back at some point. He said, hopefully soon. Again, we'll see what that's like. In the meantime, the Patriots are equipped for this because, for starters, their head coach is the defensive coach, former defensive coordinator with the Texans in Mike Vrabel. He brought along several assistants that he knew from his time in Tennessee. Zach Kerr is currently overseeing the defense, and he was under Terrell Williams and Mike Vrabel for 4 seasons in Tennessee. So again, there's the familiarity there. And as Williams told us, I may not be in the building, but I'm still with the football team. He's meeting with the defense and with the coaches via Zoom on a daily basis. Something to monitor going forward, because obviously that's not the start that you want in his first year as a defensive coordinator. But it was good to be able to see him, talk to him. As he said, I got 300 texts after Mike made the announcement that I wasn't going to be at practice. People wondering if I was on my deathbed. He's like, you can see me. He's waving his hands. I'm not on my deathbed. Don't worry about it. I'll get there. So Terrell Williams, again, hopefully back soon. I was looking at Zach Rosenblatt's story on the Jets, Will, and he mentioned 94% attendance rate, according to Aaron Glenn, for the voluntary stage 2 of practice after 90% for stage 1. Patriots getting similar numbers. And again, sort of speaks to, hey, guys understanding, right? I have to put my best foot forward. New staff, I got to impress these guys. And I just like right away that level of commitment where instead of guys saying, look, coach knows I train on my own, I'm going to train on my own. These guys are here trying to build something with the new staff, trying to build respect, learn each other. And I think, again, it's a little thing because it is voluntary, but I think it matters in the big picture of like coming together already at this point of the year and trying to figure each other out and figure out what the coaching staff wants from you.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is the two guys the Jets are likely going to extend here in the next 8 weeks are there.
Right.
That is one. I mean, Garrett does not have to be there at all.
Right.
He's proven himself in the league. It's beautiful weather still in Austin. He could go home and do his thing and train on his own. He's played with Justin Fields. Like, they don't have to learn each other. And him being there is big. Sauce is, he's always kind of around the facility. So there's never really a question there. I can tell you, Sauce looks significantly bigger in a good way. Like, he looks like an NFL player. He's been 2-time All-Pro. Probably, right. I'm not sure how much he was lifting or not lifting. I have no idea, but he's probably 205, 210 pounds now, which if he can start to tackle even a little bit, like, there's not much else to his game that can be improved. I guess catching the football on some picks, but that's not kind of situational as well, how many times you get thrown at. Like the Jets have had there's no Egypt trips, no different things like that. I think, the biggest thing coming out of rookie minicamp being Mason Taylor for the first day wore a crappy number is a nice, refreshing change. It is, I think, we'll see on some of these rookies. I think a lot of them had, they looked like what they should look like, and the people are going to make a lot out of Arian Smith. He's the one, playmaker early outside of Mason Taylor. He's going to get overhyped, I guess, early on, and then he's gotten a lot of criticism. So now obviously everyone's doing the reverse and they're getting defensive and saying how good he is. Let's see. Let's let him, maybe have a camp practice first before we start anointing him Deshaun Jackson and or bust, because either way, we have no idea. But no, I think Mason Taylor's number being the biggest conversation coming out of the weekend, and all these rookies are signed. Very rare, by the way, for the Jets. It's been a big issue. One of those issues that shouldn't be a thing, but it's been a really big. Like, Sam Darnold and Zach Wilson missed like days of camp. That's how bad it was. Offset language and different things like that, where unfortunately the Jets kind of needed that offset language, unfortunately, because of the way both guys ended up playing football for them. But yeah, I just like getting contracts were signed. Everyone's there. They're working. Like, it's just a refreshing change. And again, I know I don't want to make too much mountain out of a molehill, but like, hey, like, these are little steps that frankly both teams just didn't do well last year. And in order to get better, you got to start doing the little things well. And I think, like, hey, can we improve around the margins? What can we do sports performance wise, analytically? How can we make our nutrition stuff better? How can we do these little things to get our guys ready for the season? And the better the facility is, the better the environment is for these guys to be in. They're more likely to be up here and want to work out with the team as opposed to being on their own. Part of the reason these guys go and work out on their own is it's the comfort of, hey, I can be at home and work out on my own. But a lot of times it's like, hey, I'd rather just have my own chef cook me food and these different things. Like, when the organizations put them in a good spot where, hey, I'm happy to come train if I know I'm going to eat well and I'm going to be coached the right way and I'm actually going to, these things are useful. Like, I don't blame guys a year ago with the Jets saying, I don't want to be here. Why would you want to be why would you want to be at a facility where you're not getting a lot of direction? Now they're getting some direction. It makes them, I think gives them a good reason to want to be, hey, I'll sacrifice flying home and back on the weekends if it means I'm going to actually get better in the offseason being in the facility.
Yeah, one of the things from my previous life at NFL Network was doing pro days, and you go to some of these facilities. Clemson stands out, Notre Dame, trying to think what else, Penn State, and you go into, as I was making fun of the Patriots indoor bubble, you go into these places, it's 3 times the size of that, and the facilities. I remember at Clemson, it's like they literally had anything you could possibly want. They had obviously their own cafeteria, but then there was a bowling alley, there were pool tables, there was foosball, there was skee ball, there was a golf simulator, there were basketball hoops. It's like those dudes never had to leave there. I wouldn't want to leave there. Like that's the spot I want to be in. And the Patriots are building a $50 million facility that's long overdue there. And I think, to your point, that's one of those things where, like, you got to make it. I know these guys are getting paid good money, but you have to give them reason sometimes to stick around a little bit longer.
It's a weird example, but you ever see them? Oh my God, what was the movie? Vince Vaughn, Owen Wilson, when they work for Google. I can't think of the title of the movie. Whatever. They're like, they're in their 40s or whatever. They go back to work. They work at Google. They're like interns. And they joke about it, but it's a real thing. A lot of these bigger companies, the way they get you to be in the facility all the time is they make it, and basically you have no reason to want to leave outside of your family. You can eat amazing food. They've got the gyms and all. And again, I know it's a weird example, but like it kind of is the same thing where, hey, does anyone really does any NFL player in May or June really want to be some of these guys thousands of miles from home to do the same workout they could do at home? It's like, no, not really, right? Because they're going to go back to camp, and then the NFL season gets longer and longer and longer, and the schedule release on Wednesday, which we'll obviously talk about next episode, and the games to highlight. But got to make it worthwhile. Like, hey, I want to be coached the right way and trained the right way, especially the strength program stuff where that stuff can be very dicey. Guys' bodies are different, and if it's really the best programs, Mike, Philly and Baltimore and these other places, we never really hear about attendance rate and these different things because there's nothing to cover. We hear about it with the organizations where they struggle to do it the right way. And if the Jets are now in the high 90s, that's a good thing. That means it's like, hey, I know it's the first year of a new regime, but maybe it becomes a trend where next year we don't talk about this with either team. It's a given, everyone's there. There's no question about it.
Yeah, the training program is interesting, and certainly during the Belichick era, there was a complaint from some players. It's not the one size all. You gotta, to your point, your body is different than my body. So like, you may want, this is what we're supposed to do. Well, that doesn't work for me. And there was not a lot of give and take there. And I think that's important too, to give the give and take. By the way, speaking of which, and we've talked about this a little bit, Christian Barmore continues to be around for the voluntary workouts, and we're supposed to hear from him on Thursday. So I'm anxious for that because we haven't really. I mean, I'm sure he's going to get asked the question whether he chooses to answer it or not, but he's clearly feeling confident about his health and his availability. As I keep saying, he's teasing on social media, the comeback season is loading. And I'm hopeful that maybe in that conversation, we'll get an idea of like, hey, we figured out what was causing the blood clots. We now know, and we know what to stay away from, or whatever it was. But he's such a critical piece for what they're doing, right? If you have a Christian Barmore from 2 years ago and you're sliding him next to Milton Williams with Keon White and some of the other pieces that they've added, you start talking about bigger things for the New England Patriots and their defense. So I'm looking forward to having that conversation with him. Before we get out of here, I did want to say that I'm liking from a Jets perspective, the early ownership that you're getting from Justin Fields. We know that the part of the reason why he didn't want to return to Pittsburgh was because there was no promise is a big word, but like, hey, I was doing okay. You benched me for Russell Wilson. Wilson went sideways and you didn't ever come back to me. And he feels like they've cleared the path for him, cleared the runway for him in New York to be a starter. but you're getting the stories now. Hey, who was the first guy who reached out to you after you got drafted? Justin Fields. Not just the offensive guys, but the defensive guys as well. And look, he's still a young player, and I'm not sure he's ever going to get to the level that you hoped he would be when he was a top 10 pick. But I still think that there's some room for growth there as a player, and certainly he's showing you, Will, the thing you want in a leader. And look, it's because there's less going on, sometimes more gets made of this than possible. But then when you start to connect the dots from his previous stops, he was that guy in Chicago, even with the burden that was on him. And even last year in Pittsburgh, not knowing if he was going to be the guy, he still was someone who tried to step to the forefront and lead. And he's not, as I think Aaron Glenn said, he's not the most outward, vocal guy. It's work, it's action, but those little things I think do matter as you're trying to build relationships and get into the season going, hey, I know this guy has my back, and that's important to me because that makes me want to play just a little bit harder for him than maybe I would for someone who only cares about himself and not the team.
Yeah, I think Aaron Glenn's made it quite clear. Like, he's had shackles on him his entire career. Like, whether it's stuff with the Bears was just, young quarterback in a bad spot. We've seen too many examples of that. And again, Fields wasn't great, but neither was what was around them, nor was the coaching. And then, I think there's something to be said for all those guys wanted Justin Fields back, Komet and Moore and all those guys. And he was never going to be back, obviously, that first overall pick.
Yep.
And then, although you could make the argument still that, like, hey, like what the Bears could have gotten for that pick and, whatever, it doesn't matter. And he goes to Pittsburgh and, like, it seems like his whole teammates wanted Justin Fields playing. And, for whatever reason, Arthur Smith, Tomlin, whatever it may be, didn't kind of play to him in you're going to just be this guy and this is what we want from you. And he played well. They were 4-2. I think the argument to be made that Justin Fields can make the same leap and jump, I guess, from that Sam and Baker and Gino and all these guys made is third team, sat in a good organization, learned what it's like to be in a spot where we do things consistently well. His numbers each year, if you actually look, every major statistic has taken a pretty incremental increase throwing the football each year. Hey, does that increase again? Now, yes, you can tell me that the Jets receiver room is not very good, and I'm not going to argue with you. But hey, this offensive line should be the best O-line he's played with, and Garrett's probably the best receiver, or at least in the conversation, the best receiver he's played with, and this should be one of the better defenses he's been at. Like, all these things do line up for, hey, it is make or break it, but like there's a reason to think he could be a league average quarterback. And, and if he's a league average quarterback and he's one of the 2 or 3 best runners, at least you're going, every game we have a shot. And I don't think people are expecting him to be a superstar, but I also think that there's a chance Justin could show him hey, I could be a starter in this league. Like a legit, I'm a starter. And again, he's never going to, I don't know if he's going to be Baker and throw 40 touchdowns up randomly, but I also don't think that Baker offers half of what he offers in the run game. So could Justin Fields be 3,200 yards, make 16 starts and run for 800 yards? It's like, hey, 4,025 and limits the turnovers. And you're like, okay, like they're a little scary to play against because you have to defend run and pass at all times. But yeah, I think the Jets are going to give him every opportunity to win this job because there's no reason for them not to. Like, this is a year one of a regime where you can take a shot, and if they make the playoffs this year, great. If they win 6 games, but they show progress in terms of quality of play, like it's year one, right? Like I think that's what makes so much of Drake May's year last year more exciting. It was like, can we just see something that we can go into year 2 building? Yeah. And again, it's a different situation, but I think Tampa, when they had Baker, was like, and Minnesota last year was like, hey man, Kevin's got a job security. Can he just do something? Can he not kill us? And then Sam ended up playing really well and parlayed himself into a huge deal. So Gino, same thing in Seattle, where it was like Gino's last real shot to be a starter, played really well. They made the playoffs. It was like, this is, and then you had progress year 2 and year 3 where you could go into the season with something to play for. I don't know what Justin's going to be, but works really hard, good kid, and teammates love him. They love you until you play on Sundays and you start losing. Right. So if he plays well, going to be king of New York. He plays like crap. We'll have Arch Manning chance by week 8. That's just the way it rolls.
Just don't on 3rd and 6 take the play clock down to 1 second, audible, and throw a check down for a 2-yard completion like the previous guy did. I think that'll make you much happier at MetLife. Just in general, take some shots and be willing to push the ball down the field. I am curious to see him though, because I do. I like the energy that he's always brought, and he's got to become a better passer. But to your point, it doesn't have to be 40 touchdowns.
Yeah. He's just got to know that he doesn't have to be like
just be smart with the football. Like we've talked about this. I swear I say this about every 5th podcast with you. Like, what could competent league average quarterback play have gotten the Jets in previous seasons when their defense was built up like it was, and I think it could be again this year? That's a playoff team, like that's a team that's dangerous. So if he can give them that, and they can get someone to emerge in that wide receiver room aside from Garrett, that could be a possibility if the defense can reclaim its sort of stake as a top 10 defense.
It's a pretty simple formula. It's see if it works, Cotton.
Yeah. Hey, it's everybody has a little different approach, and they're in this sort of, is he the bridge guy? Probably, yes. But let's see. He's still young enough where something could happen for him in New York. And, as you said, if it doesn't work, you'll be hearing about Arch Manning far too soon. Before we get out of here, for those listening to the show, we ask you to subscribe to the podcast, like and leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe to the Patriots Press Pass YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Patriots and league content. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the instant a new video drops. That is going to do it for this edition of the All 32. When we come back to you at the end of the week, we'll have the schedule out, big games that we're excited for. As we already know, the kickoff will be Eagles and Cowboys, which I don't, look, it's good. That's a good rivalry. But they probably could have done something a little different, because as someone pointed out, Eagles Cowboys could play in a parking lot.
There's no reason to shove a ratings game when you don't need to.
Yeah, exactly. But whatever, we'll be excited for it. That's going to do it for Will, for Mike. We will see you again at the end of the week.
It is caught! Touchdown! The New England Patriots select Drake May.